what are the seven temples. Today we're going to look at the seven temples. The seven temples. Uh, in the history of the world, we have seven temples altogether, but mostly we always see three, four, but the other three is like they are hidden small, and sometimes we don't see them as temples, but they are temples. So the seven temples, two are past. We have past two temples, three present temples, and two future temples, making seven temples. We have two past temples, they have gone, and we have three present temples, and we also have three future temples, making up the seven temples. And if you also look at them, the same seven temples, you can also group them in this way: four physical temples and three spiritual temples. Four physical temples and three spiritual temples. Okay, let's begin with the past two temples. Uh, I said the two temples have been passed, they have gone. They have gone already. The first temple was the Temple of Solomon, the temple that Solomon built in First Kings chapter 6. If you read First Kings chapter 6, you see how Solomon built the first temple. So the first temple is Solomon temple, and that temple has been destroyed. It was destroyed. If you read Second Chronicles chapter 36, verses 15 through 19, you see that the Babylonians came there and destroyed the temple. We can read there. Second Chronicles chapter number 36, verses 15 through 19. Okay, it reads this way. We can even start from the verses 17. Let's start from the verse. He brought up against them the king of the Babylonians, who killed their young men with the sword in the sanctuary, and spared neither young nor small, neither young man nor young woman, old or aged. God handed over all of them to Nebuchadnezzar. He carried to Babylon all the articles from the temple of God, both large and small, and the treasury of the Lord's temple and the treasury of the king's temple. They set fire to God's temple and broke down the walls of Jerusalem and burned all the palaces and destroyed everything of value there. Good. So you have seen that was Solomon's temple, and when it was destroyed, when God handed them over to Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, so they destroyed the first temple. So the first temple was built by Solomon in First Kings chapter number 6, and then it was destroyed in Second Chronicles chapter 36, verses 15 through 19. Good. Let's move to the second temple. The second temple is called the Herod's temple. Let's put it this way. After the Babylonian captivity, the Israelites built a temple. If you read Ezra chapter 6, verses 18, and then Ezra chapter 3, verses 7 through 13, this temple was built. Even if you also read Haggai, those places, you will see it there. These people built the second temple when they returned from Babylon. So they built the second temple, and later on it was renovated and extended by Herod, and they call it Herod's temple. So it was called Herod's temple not because he built it, or maybe it was his temple was the third, or any other temple, but it was the same temple that the returnees, those who returned, the returnees built. He only expanded it. So because he expanded it, that's why they call it Herod's temple. So the second temple was Herod's temple, the one that was built by Zerubbabel and then the rest when they returned from captivity. So I said if you read Ezra chapter number 3, verses 7 through 13, and then Ezra chapter 6, verses 13, you see them building that temple there. So the second temple that is also past is Herod's temple. And this temple was destroyed in AD 70 by a general called Titus. Titus was sent by his father, and then he came and destroyed the temple, Herod's temple. And from then, there has not been a temple again for the Israelites. So these are the two physical temples that have passed. So these are the two temples past. The past two temples, they have gone. First Solomon temple, second Herod's temple. They have gone. Okay, now let's move to temples present. Let's move to temple present. We can even read, let us read the Ezra. I'm already in the Ezra before we come to the second, the present temples. Ezra chapter number 3, verses 7 through 13. I read this way. Then they gave money to masons and carpenters, and gave food and drinks and oil to the people of Sidon and Tyre, and so that they would bring cedar logs by sea from Lebanon to Joppa, as authorized by Cyrus the king of Persia. In the second month of the second year after their arrival at the house of God in Jerusalem, Zerubbabel, the son of Saltel, Joshua, the son of Jozadak, and the rest of their brothers, the priests and the Levites, and all who had returned from captivity to Jerusalem, began the work, appointing Levites 20 years of age and older to supervise the building of the house of God. That is the temple. The house of God is the temple. Joshua and his sons, the brothers, and then the Kadmiel and his sons, the descendants of Hodaviah, and the sons of Henadad, and their sons and brothers, all the Levites, joined together to supervise those who were working on the house of God. That is the temple. So if you are reading it, you will see the building of the temple there. And then the same Ezra 6:13 will tell us that they have finished building it and then they dedicated. It goes this way. If you read that, you see they finished from 13 coming down. You see them dedicating the temple there. So these are the two temples past. So now let's look at the three temples present. One of the three temples present is the body of Jesus Christ. Christ's body. I'm not talking about the church. I'm talking of his body. Let's read John 2. The Gospel of John, chapter number 2, verses 19 through 21. The Gospel of John, chapter number 2. Okay, I think it says this way. The Gospel of John, chapter 2, verses 19 through 21. Okay. Verses 19, it says this way. Jesus answered, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days." Destroy this temple. Which temple? Let's continue. 20. The Jews replied, It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you are going to raise it in 3 days? 21. But the temple he has spoken of was his body. The temple he was spoken of was his what? His body. That is the second, the present temple. So it's a present temple. That's why I said this one is a spiritual. You can see it. Where is it? This one is spiritual temple. It is not like the first two whereby you see that, okay, this is the location, this is the building in Jerusalem. You come to Jerusalem and you see it. But this temple have no location, physical location. So that's why I said you can also group them into physical and spiritual. So the first one was physical, the second present are spiritual, and then the third temples are, the second future will also be physical. So the first spiritual present temple, first spiritual present temple is the body of Christ, the body of Jesus Christ. Good. Let's look at another temple. Another temple that is present is believer's body, your body and my body. If you are a believer, your body is a temple and my body is also a temple. First Corinthians chapter number 3, verses 16 and then 17. First Corinthians chapter number 3, verses 16 And then 17, I read, don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple, and that God, God's Spirit lives in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is sacred, and you are that temple. Have you seen? So your body as a believer, individual body, is a temple, and my body as a believer is also a temple. That is what the Bible is telling us. So the second present spiritual temple that is present now is the body, the body of a believer. Your body is a temple, my body is a temple. So we have seen that Christ's body was a temple. Christ's body is a temple, and now your body is a temple, and my body too is also a temple. Good. Let's look at the third present temple, that is spiritual. That is the church, the whole church, the church as a whole. If you put the church, the Catholic Church, I'm talking of the worldwide church. If you put the worldwide church together, if you put the body of Christ worldwide together, it's called a temple. Let's read here. Ephesians 2:21. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 21. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 21. Okay, I read this. In him, the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. In him, the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. What whole building? That is the whole building of the church. What you are doing, you are building. That is why it says in in 1 Corinthians 3, verses 11 through 15. So you are building that same temple. I'm also building. That's why Paul said what? The foundation has been laid. So the whole body of Christ is a building. That is the house of God. That is the temple. So the second present spiritual temple is the whole body of Christ. That is the church. So I said with these ones, you can't see the location. They can't say, okay, this is the building. This is in Jerusalem. If you go to Jerusalem, you see the church there. The church is everywhere. Good. We are moving to the future. To future. So we are finished with the first past. The first two, we said the first two, they are past. The second are three present, and then the third are two future. So we said the past temples are the Solomon temple, Herod's temple, and now the present temples are the body of Christ, the believer's body, and then the church as a whole. Now, the future temple. We are going to look at the future temples. We said the future temples, they are going to be physical. They are going to be physical. They are going to be physical. So the first one there is the tribulation temple. The tribulation, the 7 years tribulation, there will be a temple, and that temple is going to be physical, and it will be located in Jerusalem. It is going to be physical, and it is future, because we haven't entered into the the tribulation yet, the 7 years yet. So when we enter there will be a temple. Whether they finish building it before we enter, or they build it during the tribulation, any of them can happen. But it is going to be function during the 7 years tribulation. So if you also read here, can read let's say Daniel 9. Daniel 9:25. We see it there. Daniel 9:25. No, I understand this, from the issuing of the decree to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem until the anointed one, the ruler, come, and will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. It will be rebuilt with streets and straight, but in times of trouble. 26. After the 62 sevens, the anointed one will be cut off and will have nothing, and the people of the ruler who comes will destroy the city and the sanctuary. That is the temple. And end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end, and desolation have been decreed. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. in the middle of the seven, that is the 7 year tribulation, he will put an end to sacrifice. What sacrifice? That will be the sacrifice in the temple. Okay, the sacrifice and offering. And on a wing of the temple, he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that is decreed to be poured out on him. So you see that it is saying through Daniel chapter 9, verses 25 through 27. You see that is what the Antichrist will do. At the middle of the 7 years, he will end sacrifice and offering in the temple. Which temple? So if there's no temple, you see there will not be sacrifices and offering. Good. So because of a sacrifices and offering that will be there, that means there will be a physical temple. So whereby the Antichrist will stop all those things and set an image there and make himself to be God. So that is one of the future temples. So you can also read here First Thessalonians chapter 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 4. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verses number 4. Good. Another temple that will be in the future is the millennium. The millennium temple. With the millennium temple, if you read Ezekiel chapter 40 through 44, you will see everything there. We can't read it because it is too long. So we can't read that one now because it is too long for us to read it now. But you can read it at your own time. So these are the 7 temples. So the millennium, we know that the millennium there will be sacrifices. There will be priests there, offering sacrifices, which will be led by the Zadokites. The Zadokites will be offering those sacrifices in. There will be priests doing those things in the millennium time, the millennium era. Even though the millennium sacrifice, that one is not just about, let's say, offering sacrifice for remission of sin, but it's just for remembrance. It's just about remembrance. If you remember, before Christ came, the offerings and the sacrifice were pointing towards what Christ will come and do. So during the millennium, it is also pointing backwards. So the Old Testament was pointing forward, and then the millennium sacrifice will be pointing backwards, what Christ came and do. It's just like the way we celebrate Christmas, the way we celebrate Easter. You see that it's just about pointing backwards, what Christ came and did. But that is not the actual thing that that we are doing. Let's assume that the day that we're celebrating Jesus Christ, let's say 25th December, they just to point back, but that is not the day that, let's assume that is not the time that we are celebrating. It is not that Christ, they have just given birth to Christ at that point. No, but we are reflecting back. So it's just a reflection of back. Good. So these are the 7 temples that we have in the Bible. 2 past, 3 present, and 2 future. Or you can still put it this way: 4 physical temples and 3 spiritual temples. Thank you for your time. May the Lord bless you.